Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Sean, and today I am ranking my 10 favorite books by female writers. So let's get into it. First, not on the list will be J.K. Rowling in the Harry Potter series. The reason is not because of the controversy surrounding her, but because it is such an obvious pick. So this book, Order of the Phoenix especially, would be number 1 or 2. The reason I do not list it is because it is such an obvious pick. I see a lot of top 10 favorite book videos, especially fantasy and sci-fi, and number 1 is always J.R.R. Tolkien, or Brandon Sanderson, Ray Bradbury, Frank Herbert, or Robert Jordan. And it's just such obvious picks. So I kind of think the most obvious picks like that, like Tolkien, should just not even be listed and save the spot for someone else. So for that reason, J.K. Rowling is not on this list, but she would clearly be 1 or 2 on the list. Number 10, scraping the bottom of the barrel, is White Teeth by Zadie Smith. For this book, I didn't actually like it in the end, and the reason was because I just didn't really care ultimately about the plot or the story or the characters. But I still think Zadie Smith is a good writer. Just from the writing alone, I thought it was pretty decent, but in terms of story and the writing making me care about the characters, it just didn't work. So this one gets listed just purely on account of good writing or decent writing. Number 9. Oh boy, I could say some things about this one, but number 9 would be Divergent by Veronica Roth. This one I read maybe a couple years after the craze of Divergent and Hunger Games. And what I thought was interesting was those two books were always so much compared to each other, I thought. But when I read them, I didn't really think there was too much similar about them. Yes, they're both like dystopian fantasies with female protagonists, but that is it. I mean, Triss is clearly not Katniss. The Hunger Games competition is clearly not I don't even remember what it's called, but like the schools or classes or groups or whatever in Divergent. Hunger Games is not on this list. I did think Catching Fire, the second book, was improvement over the Hunger Games because I thought Hunger Games was just so incredibly boring. The only thing Katniss does during the whole book really is just hide and sleep and treat wounds and talk about pus and vomit. That is it. That is the whole book. It's just boring. The second book was much better. The third book I gave up on midway through just because I just didn't care anymore. I really enjoyed the concept of this story about how society is grouped into these different factions, and yeah, that was just interesting in figuring out like which one you think you would be a part of. And yeah, so that was just interesting and I enjoyed it a lot. I did not so much like the plot of the book in the end because the whole idea of the factions thing seemed to just completely not even matter at the end because it's just like all falls apart. And also I didn't like the whole plot line about the Divergent thing, which is the whole title of the book. But I don't know, that just didn't work for me. I wish the book was just more about the factions and it just kept on with that. But instead it's about this Divergent thing, and then there's this rebellion or whatever in the faction, and then it all just falls apart and the faction is pretty much destroyed. So I mean, what was the point of the whole book really? I don't know, it just seemed to go too fast. So in the end I didn't really like the plot too much. I love the concept though, so that's why it gets on the list. What I do have to say about Divergent though is I tore it apart in my review. Even though I gave it a pretty positive review, I really went after Veronica Roth for repeating stuff about Triss's heartbeat. And since I am the way I am, what I did is I went through the book and I wrote down every time it mentions Triss's heartbeat. And this is just ridiculous. Check this out. Page 11, my heart had migrated to my throat. Page 26, my heart pounds. Page 29, my heart pounds. Page 38, my heart will burst out of my chest at any minute now. Page 58, my heart pounding so fast it hurts. Page 84, my heart pounds so hard my chest hurts. Page 105, my heart pounding with anger. Page 108, My heart is pounding so hard I can feel it in my fingertips. Page 126. Nothing comes to mind but the sound of my heart in my ears. Page 141. My heart pumps faster. Page 146. My heart beating so hard I can't feel anything else. Page 147. They blink half as fast as my heartbeat. Page 168. I hear my heartbeat in my ears. Page 175. My heart leaps. Page 194. My heart jumps. Page 195. I feel like I'm swallowing my heartbeat. Page 202. My heart thumping in my ears. Page 220. My heart slamming against my sternum. Page 221. My heart beats so hard it hurts. Page 232. I feel ... racing heart. Page 235. My heart pounds hard in my chest. Page 249. My heart leaps. Page 252. My heart pounds in anticipation. Still page 252. My heart beats faster. Page 254. My heart pounds. Page 256. I feel my heart beat in my throat. Page 265. I hear my heart beat. Page 265. My heart beats even louder. 275. I feel my heart beat everywhere, even in my toes. Page 302. I feel it with every thump of my heart. Page 310. My heart pounds. Page 325. So if you can calm your heartbeat down, ... I set his hand ... so it's right over my heart. Feel my heartbeat. Can you feel it? Yes. Feel how steady it is? It's fast. Page 326. Why is your heart racing, Tris? Page 373. With my heartbeat in my throat. Page 384. A hammering heart. Page 386. My heartbeat speeds up. Page 391. My heart hammering in my chest. Page 406. I feel his heartbeat against my cheek, as fast as my own. Page 417. My heart hammers in my chest. Page 421. My heart pounds so hard it's difficult to breathe. Page 424. My heart pounds so hard I feel it in my skull. She needs to see a heart specialist. There is something wrong with her heart. Book number 8 is going to be Beautiful Disaster by Jamie McGuire. I read this book at the recommendation of my now ex, and I don't really remember too much about it, except that I remember liking it pretty well. I don't really have much I could say about it beyond that at this point. I do think there were 2 characters who were named America and Brazil, which seems heavy-handed. I don't know, maybe it's just one, but it seemed like there were 2. And that was just kind of weird, but I don't know. The other thing I didn't like about the book, and it's a small nitpicky thing, but I think the main love interest, I think his name is Travis. He is kind of like this amateur fighter, and at one point in the book, he fights like, I think, a top-ranked UFC fighter and wins. And I didn't like that he won. I thought he should have lost. I was just like, no, he should probably get his butt kicked. But anyway, the plot of that book, if you don't know, basically it is about this girl who I think she is in college, and she kind of falls for this guy who is, gosh, I don't really remember the plot too much. I think he is kind of like a bad boy in the college, or I don't even know if he's in the college. I think his reputation is kind of like he has had every girl in the school, and so it's like kind of her turn, and she's just like, no, I don't want anything to do with the guy. But I don't know. I don't really remember it too much. So she, I think, rejects him, and he's just totally not used to that. But he kind of keeps trying, and then she falls for him, of course. And yeah, and basically it's kind of like he is a messed up guy. And so if you like books about like broken guys who are like just kind of bad guys and kind of like redeem them and fall in love with them, and they fall in love with the girl, that's basically what the book is. It's not something I would usually read. I only read it because my ex wanted me to, which shows how I can be persuaded. But anyway, I did kind of like the book, so it gets on the spot here. The main reason it gets ranked here instead of lower is because at least Jamie McGuire doesn't have freaking 40 mentions of her heartbeat. Number 7 is The Indian in the Cupboard by Lynn Reed Banks. So I was at the library one day browsing for books and I saw this book on the shelf and I was like, The Indian in the Cupboard? I didn't know that was even based on a book. I'd just seen the movie and it was one of my favorite movies as a kid. So I read it and it's very much like the movie. There are some differences, of course. I don't really remember them all at this point, but anyway, the long and short of it is I enjoyed reading the book. It was just basically just like the movie, but maybe a little bit better. I don't know. Because books are always better, they say. Anyway, for something like this, where maybe the movie is more remembered in a way, I really like giving the authors credit. So books like The Godfather by Mario Puzo and Forrest Gump is based on a book, and Silence of the Lambs is based on a book. I just really like reading the books just because I think the authors, the ones who wrote this, should get credit for it, but so often we only remember the movie. But anyway, I really enjoyed the movie, The Indian in the Cupboard, and I enjoyed the book as well. And after that, I did read the second book in the series because I enjoyed the first one. But I didn't really like the second book. I thought there were problems with the plotting, and I did a whole review of it, so you can find it up there. But anyway, The Indian in the Cupboard by Lynn Reed Banks gets the 7th spot here. Number 6 is going to be One for the Money by Janet Evanovich. This was another book that my ex was reading, and I actually got her a signed copy of this book for her birthday, which was really cool. On the book, it had Janet Evanovich's mailing address. So I mailed the book for her and asked if she would sign it for my girlfriend, which she did, which I thought was really awesome. And a little while after that, I read the book myself. So I really liked One for the Money. I thought it was pretty funny. Stephanie Plum was a real amusing, funny character. Birds. But here's the thing. Even though I enjoyed the first book, One for the Money, when I went to read the second book, Two for the Dough, I only read about 15 or 20 pages, and I just could not stand Stephanie Plum anymore. And the reason was because she was basically an idiot and she was a felon. She was committing crimes doing her bounty hunting stuff, violating rights to privacy and, I don't know, due process and, breaking into things. And she was a felon basically. And she was an idiot. And the way she'd carry her gun and keep her gun safe, but not really. She was just stupid, and she basically deserves to get killed. She deserves to get arrested. So, the first book I thought was funny. The second book, it lost its charm. The magic wore off. And she was just stupid. She was a moron. She was a criminal. She was a felon. She should be arrested, or she should be killed. I did not care. I wanted her to die. So, after that point, about 20 pages into Two for the Dough, I just gave up on the series. I could not read it anymore. I could not stand her anymore. And yeah. But anyway, One for the Money by Janet Evanovich gets the 6th spot. Number 5 goes to Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I have so many thoughts and feelings about this book, and really I could give this book anything from a 1 to a 5-star review and rating. But in the end, the book just drove me crazy. But anyway, on the good side of it, I thought the book was one of the best books I've ever written for a while. The description in particular was just perfect. It was flawless. I don't like a lot of description in novels because I think ultimately a lot of it doesn't matter. It's just details about crap that doesn't matter, like the sun is shining, the trees are out, and whatever. And why does it matter? It doesn't develop the plot. It doesn't develop the story. It doesn't really set up the setting because it's like, I can just picture a sunny day or a cloudy day or a rainy day or whatever on my own. I don't need all those details spoon-fed to me. All you need to say is it's raining and I could picture it. Okay, I know what rain is. You don't have to describe droplets of rain and dew and on blades of grass and just whatever. But this book, Gone with the Wind, I thought the description was just masterfully done because all of it seemed to further the setting, the plot, the story, the characters. It all was just masterful description. At least for maybe the first 150 pages, I was loving it. I thought this book would be a sure 5-star book. After that, I began to notice things. The main things I remember were overuses of exclamation points. It just drove me crazy. There was also repetition, so it would just repeat the same line from the previous sentence, or just use the same line like 3 times in the chapter, and again with exclamation points. And the book ultimately was just too long. So if the book was cut by about 400 pages, you got rid of the exclamation points, you got rid of the repeated sentences, it would be a good book maybe. There were other problems I had with the book as well, especially like in terms of Scarlett's character. I just had some issues with her. I had some issues with the book overall. But I think the description, for the most part, was just masterful. So I would really recommend reading Gone with the Wind, at least 100 or 200 pages. Read as much as you can, because so much of the description in that book is just beautiful. I loved it. But the rest of the book, oh, it just drove me crazy, and I just wound up hating it more and more. So I'm really divided about this book. But it gets the 5 spot. Number 4 goes to one of the first books I read back in high school, and that is The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. Now, I do not really remember too much about the book, except basically it's about this farmer in China, I think, who basically begins to prosper, and he begins like expanding his farm, and he begins to get wealthy, and then he begins seeing a prostitute. So he begins spending all of his money and his fortune on her, and I think he just kind of becomes impoverished because of that. And then it goes on, he has some kids, and it's the story, you know, he's still seeing the prostitute, I think, and I don't know. It was just overall a real interesting book. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know how it would stand up reading it today, because I'm a lot more particular or whatever about my reading. But still, I really remember liking this book when I read it in high school, and I don't remember disliking anything about it. So overall, I thought it was just a really good, enjoyable book. It did not seem to take me too long either to read it, so I think it's a pretty easy read. So The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck, I really enjoyed it, so it gets the 4th spot. Really influential book for me, because it was one of the first books I read and enjoyed it, so it helped get me into reading. Number 3 goes to Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So I had never seen any of the Frankenstein movies before reading this book, except Young Frankenstein. I love Young Frankenstein, it's great, I love that movie. So I really read the book blind, only kind of knowing the basics, that it's about this doctor who creates this creature, brings this creature back to life, and it goes bad. But I didn't know anything about the book beyond that. Now, when I started it and saw it was written, birds. The book is written in, I think it's called epistolary style, so it's basically written through letters or journal entries. And so that's not like something you would read today. The writing can also be pretty dry, wordy, boring even, and the plot can be kind of slow to unfurl. But in the end, I really enjoyed the story overall, and the characters of the doctor and the creature. It was just really interesting, and so I enjoyed it a lot. Not so much as I was reading, but when I got toward the end and finished the book, because I did read the whole thing, I realized it's one of the great books of all time. And again, it's hard to exactly say why, because the writing is, again, it's not like something you would read today. It is pretty difficult, but still, it's a really good book. The main thing I have to come back to with his book is you have to be patient with it. It is not like something you would read today. It is pretty difficult. It can be wordy or boring, but you have to give the book a chance. You have to be patient with it, read it all the way through, and hopefully, like me, you'll see that it's one of the great books of all time. Everyone should read it. It's difficult to say what makes it really great. I think it is, though. So I would recommend it to everyone. And for that reason, it gets the 3 spot on this list. Number 2 goes to a book that I've been mentioning more and more on my channel recently, and I did another review of this book, but it is Carson McCullers' The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. I was so divided about this book really the whole time as I was reading it. I was just having such a difficult time figuring out whether I even liked this book and hoping that something would happen in the book to make it all worthwhile and just reach a moment in the book where it's like, oh, thank God, I'm so glad I read this far. That never really happened. If anything, the book was kind of disappointing at the end because I was like, that's it? I was reading this whole book just for that? It drove me crazy. But the thing was, I was not upset I read the whole book. I still enjoyed the book. Why? I do not know. I don't even know if I could say I enjoyed the book. I may have disliked the book. But the thing was, I was able to read the whole thing. And I don't know, I didn't regret that I read the whole book. So, I still think I liked it. This book perplexes me so much because it's a book where I can kind of see everything the writer is doing and I understand it, but I wonder if there's more to it than I'm really getting. I hope that makes sense. Imagine it's like watching a movie where it's like an okay movie, but you understand there is some kind of artwork involved in the movie, some kind of message or something about the cinematography or the writing or the story or storytelling or whatever. You just realize this is probably great, but I am not really getting it fully. Maybe it's also like seeing an artwork, like a statue or something, where you understand you are seeing something great, but maybe you're not in love with it personally. That's kind of how I feel about this book. So I don't really know. I can't really say it was a phenomenal book, but I think it's worth reading for everyone, really. I think it is a work of art in the end, and everyone should read it. Basically, the plot of this book, it's basically set in, I think, a southern town in, I don't know when exactly. I think it's around the 1930s or so, 1940s. I think around 1930s. Around a southern town, and basically it follows about 6 or 7 characters. And I don't know what to say about it really, but the main central character kind of is deaf. And he is kind of like, not the narrator of the story, but in a way he's almost like a godlike presence in the book, just because everything kind of revolves around him, even though he doesn't speak really to anyone, and because he's deaf he can't really hear them either. But he's kind of observing all of them, and he's present for all of them. And the book is not from his perspective, so you don't get like firsthand writing from him. It's not set from his point of view. But I don't know, there's just something godlike about him, how everything revolves around him, even though he's silent, he's a mute, he's deaf, he can't talk, but he's still the central character of the story. So that's really interesting, just that decision to do that. So that was peculiar in itself. There's several other characters. I don't really want to go into them all. In the end, I think it's still a good book. I don't know. It's a book I definitely think I want to reread at some point. And also because of it, I think Carson McCullers has become a must-read author for me. I've already gotten another book by her because I want to read everything she wrote, really. Because I just want to figure out more about her writing. Because it just confuses me so much, because it's like I can't figure out if I like it or I dislike it, or if it's good or if it's bad or what. But I still think it is great in a way. Hopefully that makes sense. Like viewing the art piece where, you know, maybe you don't really like it, but you understand there's something great about it. That's kind of how I think about her writing. So, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers gets the 2 spot. I do think everyone should read it. I still will not say like, oh, prepared to be blown away, this is a great book, because I don't know. I don't even know if you're gonna like it, but still I think you should read it and see what you think about it, because I don't know. And the #1 book of all time is J.K. Rowling. Nope. The #1 book by female writer of all time is Eleanor Oliphant by Gail Honeyman. So this book was recommended to me from the librarian, and I read it and I loved it. I thought Eleanor Oliphant was just so unintentionally funny. She's kind of a B word. She's pretty rude to people, but she doesn't really mean to be. And again, she doesn't mean to be funny, but she is. So I just love Eleanor Oliphant. She's one of my favorite literary characters of all time. Hopefully you've already read the book, so you already know what I'm talking about, because if you haven't, you have to read this book. It's great. The book is basically, I think Eleanor is in the United Kingdom or London or whatever. And basically she is kind of, I don't know, not middle-aged maybe. I don't know. She's somewhere around 30s, I think. And she's never really had a boyfriend, I think. I don't know. But she kind of gets obsessed or interested in this like guy who's in a rock band. And so in her own mind, she is like convinced that she will wind up with him. And just the way she kind of obsesses about him and thinks like they're going to get together is just an example of what makes a book funny. It's just the way it's written. It's brilliantly executed. The whole book is great, really. I am tempted to reread it at some point, but I'm kind of nervous. Since I loved the book so much reading it the first time, I'm kind of worried if I try rereading it, I wouldn't like it. If I would spot things that I just don't like, or if I read parts that I thought were funny, but now I'm like, oh, that's not funny, that's stupid. I don't know. But I love the book. Ever since I've read this book, I've been looking for another book by her because she's supposed to be coming out with a second book. I don't know what that's going to be or when it is, but it's definitely going to be a must-read for me because I thought this book was just great. I thought it was hilarious. It was perfect. It was one of my favorite books ever. But I say it was perfect, it really was not. There is a plot twist at the end that I just thought was completely unnecessary. I thought it was just bad. I thought it was stupid. The whole book was perfect, so why would she try to do this plot twist at the end? It has been done before in several books, what she does with the plot twist. So when I read it, I was just like, you're doing that plot twist? Why? The whole book was great. Why ruin it with this plot twist? Anyway, ultimately, in the end, it didn't matter because to me, I basically just threw the plot twist out. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. You're trying to go for that plot twist. It's been done before. It didn't work. It sucks. It's stupid. It would ruin the book. So no, stupid plot twist. Basically, the plot twist doesn't exist to me. It is not canonical. So I still like it in spite of that. Basically, the whole book is great. Just ignore the plot twist. I don't know, maybe you'd like the plot twist at the end and whatever. I didn't think it was necessary for the book at all. I thought the book was great without it. So anyway, Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine by Gail Honeyman. It is my #1 book of all time by a female writer. And this is also a signed copy, which I absolutely love. I got it at Target. I freaked out when I saw this because I was kind of hoping to find a signed copy of it at Target because Target at the time had so many signed books occasionally. And so I was just hoping a signed copy of this would turn up, and it did. So I just jumped on it. And yeah, I'm super glad about that. And for that reason, most often you'll see Eleanor Oliphant is either here or up there. So it gets an honored spot on my shelf. So anyway, that is it. Those are my 10 favorite books by female writers. What do you think? Are any of your favorites on this list? Who are your favorites? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.